Hi, this is John Aguiloro. I like to introduce Brian O'Toole, our screenwriter, and my fellow producer, Harmon Caslow. Right now, you're looking at the moment of September 2nd, 2016. Now, in the book, there was Eddie Willers working for Diagny Taggart, the lead character. She was in her office. He was walking the street in New York, and I ran into a bum, and he asked for a dime, and then the question who was John Galt came up, and that's how it began in the book. We needed to have cinematically some context to show where is the world at that point, September 2nd, 2016. Where is the world? And this introduction gave that, and we did it in multiple ways. One is the train, and you'll see the train wrecking at some point. Then you're looking at civilization at a major cities and seeing the decline there. And then we're showing here a bit of Washington and the demonstrations going on, and capitalism doesn't work, and the tug between government is this answer and government is the problem, and all of that context. And we've got the pirate, the character Ragnar in there, the pirate sinking ships with valuable merchandise. We have here this train wreck showing things again falling apart. And it vividly gives in multiple formats the train wreck, the problem with civilization, and now we've got this mysterious fellow walking into the diner.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's important. First off, John, and I know I speak for all the people that were sort of involved with the production of the film. I mean, it's very, very humbling, to have had the opportunity to be involved in the production of a film based on such an important novel. One that was written in the 1950s, and now we made the decision to set it in the future of 2016. And I think people, John, would appreciate sort of what went into the decision-making process of setting it actually in 2016.
Yeah, that's a good point, Harmon. Ayn Rand always said that the Atlas Shrugged takes place, timing-wise, the day after tomorrow. That was her sense of how one would read the book. And she did write it in 1957. It was published earlier than that. It took her about 9 years to write it. So she really started in the 40s, and the world of that time was the trains and so forth. Now, when this movie is done again in 100 years, you're not going to see trains. You may not see planes. It'll be a different context. It's about ideas, not exactly the timing, whether computers or cell phones or trains or airplanes or automobiles are relevant. But I did squeeze in, probably in a decade from now, it would be a tight fit. But we did squeeze in here. You'll see airplanes. You'll see references to airplanes. You'll see cell phones, technology, in some context, of course, falling apart in some ways. But we do use the train as a symbol of the industrial timing, showing where they're really having a comeback because of the high price of fuel. Right here, Wesley Mauch, one of the things he talks about, of course, is gasoline with the Mideast imploding, and we see that today in 2011 in many ways. Price of gasoline, $37.50 a gallon. So it's not so far-fetched when you look at the timing of several years from now, what could be versus today with, what do we have, $100 gallon, $80 to $110 a gallon for oil.
Well, barrel, a price per barrel.
Yeah.
John, I mean, it took Ayn 9 years to write. It took you 18 years. It took Brian O'Toole far less time. We put him under a lot of pressure to come up with the screenplay. I think people would be sort of fascinated at the process that you and he went through to come up with a screenplay in such a short period of time. A lot of decisions were made. including, would we do the whole book? Would we do part one? Those sorts of things. It'd be interesting for you to share, you and Brian to share your insights on that, since it was quite an overwhelming task that,
Well,
that you
Brian
guys
and I,
succeeded at.
yeah, you're right, Harmon. And Brian and I, we hit it off right away. I had a great sense of his intellect and a great sense of his effort to collaborate with what he saw passionately I needed to do. And that was not just take a novel and shoot off some movie, but to adapt faithfully to the context of the novel because of the ideas. If the ideas were not so fundamentally philosophically, you can take detours here and there. So that was important to me. And the first draft, I knew we had a hit in terms of adapting faithfully what Ayn Rand's words were, what they meant. And Brian, I'll have you take it from there.
Well, I mean, the process of going in with any book to screen now, adaptation, you go in first with respect for the original material. You have to say, there's fans of this. I don't want to let them down. I want to keep the essence. But, you can't put 336 pages in a hour and a half movie. So things have to come and go. And so when I go into any adaptation, I look at the material and I just say, what is the heart? What is the essence of the story? And when I broke apart part one, I looked at it and said, well, this is the underdog story. This is the story of a woman who's trying to save her railroad. And she's trying to save her family railroad from three forces. One, internal, which is her brother, and his incompetence and his government cronies and intruding. And then there's the second one, which is the government itself, which keeps imposing more and more laws and bills and rules to keep them from growing, from them to see their potential. And then finally, there's a third force, an unknown force, that's grabbing the minds of the world, the producers, the creatives, and taking them away. So that to me was the core of the story. It was to follow Dagny, to how she succeeds against these three forces.
Eddie, can you give us a minute? I need to.
Well, speaking of Dagny, she's on screen now, and I have to say, John, we made just a fabulous decision with her. She just did a great job. And it's one of those roles where, during your 18 years of working through Hollywood, you encountered a number of other, actresses and actors that expressed an interest in it. And perhaps you can sort of talk about the adventure you were on to get to a point where finally someone was able to say action to a movie based on the book.
Yeah, well, the adventure started in the summer, August of 1992, when I purchased a long-term lease of the rights from the intellectual and legal heir of Ayn Rand, Leonard Peikoff. And I thought it would be a relatively easy project to do. I was certainly outsourcing it. I didn't want to actively produce or be involved in a direct way. And it was one of the biggest epics novels written and not put on the screen. So I had some background in Wall Street and thought I could raise from interested parties the necessary fund, and actually had commitments and raised $2 or $3 million at the time in the early 90s with looking at a big studio budget, having them get involved, probably in the 20 to 30 million range, large, but nothing at the time that would be considered outrageous. And didn't, it wasn't successful. I had a video produced to sell with it, about a 12-minute video showing something actually similar, the Times. I haven't looked at it in years. And that didn't happen. Then time went by, and Al Ruddy, who actually I have seen a press release of Ayn Rand and Al Ruddy back in the 70s announcing the movie release, and So he was definitely involved with this project at one point. Talked to him, got involved for at least 2 or 3 years with the Ted Turner organization, TNT. And Al did an outstanding job in creating excitement around it, but it just didn't take off. It was not able to put it together. And so finally, after we can talk about it maybe a little bit later in the movie here with, I guess, Lionsgate, those two entities were some highlights. There was not, it just didn't happen until finally, several months before, with a fellow that Harmon knows, Howard Baldwin, the producer of Ray, and I've known him for several years, introduced me to Harmon, and I said, well, maybe we got something here. Maybe I can do it. But I was losing heart because we were just a few months away, several months away from the lapsing of the rights. And but my wife, Joan Carter, said, you know what, you'd better get the hell out there to L.A., because if you don't get this project done after all these years, it will haunt you the rest of your life. So with that green thumbs up, I decided to do it. And that's really how this thing got done. And being an entrepreneur and having had a number of businesses, small businesses over the years, a couple dozen bought and sold, the dynamics of doing a movie or running any kind of business or service or anything else, they're all the same. You need capital resources, human resources. You've got to have a strategy, and you have to use tactics to activate the strategy. You need a little bit of luck. You need some stomach to withstand a lot of bad luck and bad decisions that you'll make. But it finally got done.
I'm staking my business on it.
I know what you mean. Like I said,
Just as a scene that we're watching right now, I mean, just really exemplifies, the people that we were able to bring in. A lot of them inspired and influenced by the book. You probably noticed just on the production design in this scene, the statue of Atlas Shrugged in the back, Atlas holding the globe. Just sort of exemplifies, Howard and Karen Baldwin are people who had worked long and hard to try to get this film into production. Also, Ed Snyder, involved in the film, before you, John, and another kind of ally for us. Maybe we can, talk a little bit about sort of the personnel that, were brought in, came together and helped us, put together a film that really turned out to be quite beautiful, considering the very compressed amount of time that we had to marshal this into production.
Yeah, that pre-production was, I think, on Rose Avenue in Venice City, California, Santa Monica area.
Can you imagine a commercial jet twice the size with half the weight?
Well, I think the good thing about being, on home video is that the audience can now still and see all the detail that the art department and everyone put into it. I mean, as Harmon was saying, the Atlas holding up the world statue,
Yeah.
Positioned right between them and Dagny, and there's a lot of little aspects, little hidden things that what's flashing on the televisions in the background are very good. To take a moment to still the picture after you've watched it once,
Yeah.
and take a look at how hard everyone worked to bring this to life.
Now, this is one of the scenes that in our decision to market the film, we had released a couple of the scenes of the movie to the public. This is one of the scenes that we released, and one of the things about it that I think really exemplifies the good fortune that John and I experienced in producing the film is really the casting. We used Ronnie Eskel, who was burdened with a very short period of time to cast, I think, more than 40 speaking roles. And I think one of the responses we got from people who, saw the film was just how wonderful, these actors turned out to be. And here you have Grant Bowler, Rebecca, Wasaki on screen, and I think that they just came to really signify the characters that a lot of people, had identified in the book, but had never really put an image to.
Now,
Well, what's
in this
really
scene,
important. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, let me just, and in this scene here, the first pour of the Reardon medal, which took Henry Reardon, the character, 10 years to make, he gives this trophy to his wife. This is his home, which is a great location that we got for showing this, this corporate giant. And I guess the wife, again, according to the book, not as appreciative as one would think for having received a gift of his mind rather than a gift of diamonds, let's say.
This is a perfect scene where the audience actually, I mean, the actors actually get what's going on, because this is the Reardon family dynamic. This family's sole purpose is to make him feel guilty. Guilty for his success, guilty for his happiness. They want him to feel guilty because of his, their empty, miserable lives. And I think this scene, as an introduction to these characters, really hammers that home. And then that's what movies can do better than books, is to visually do that.
Yeah, no doubt, and just some additional insight into kind of what John and I were experiencing during production here. These scenes actually were were filmed on days that we had Nathaniel Brandon visit us on set, and I think that was very meaningful not only for the crew but for John and me, and I think that. John, maybe it's appropriate for you to kind of recognize the people who, you leaned on to make certain that we stayed authentic and true to the philosophy of the book and the production of the movie.
Well, I did speak with Nathaniel Brandon, who was a partner of Ayn Rand's, during their lifetime, and wrote a book about their experiences together. A philosopher, a psychologist, and someone who deeply respected his involvement with her. David Kelly is the chairman of the Atlas Society, there are two groups that espouse the philosophy of Ayn Rand. And for people that want to know more about that, that's the Ayn Rand Institute, and they're in California, and in D.C. is the Atlas Society. David Kelly is running that. Yaron Brook is the operative chief executive officer of Ayn Rand Institute, and both of them have been, helpful in having us get ideas from different contexts, perhaps, but have been available for measured help and making sure that some of the political ideas that are espoused are part of the philosophic foundation of Ayn Rand's thinking.
Yeah, and then in these particular scenes, in our scramble to put together, a cast, Henry Reardon, played by Grant Bowler, he had actually been in Australia literally the same day, given sort of traveling back over the time zone. Very committed to doing it, and again, just sort of exemplified the sort of people that we brought in. Our director, Paul Johansson, who came in literally in June, stepped in and took on the responsibility of directing the picture, and under very, very, trying circumstances, put in a phenomenal amount of energy and heart and soul into the process. And, John and I, are incredibly appreciative of that particular effort. The entire cast and crew, I think that we experienced overtime almost every day, didn't we, John?
We made the day about half the time, and the other half of the time we did go over. Well, I think, yeah. But it was we were doing pre-production while we were doing production, so that's a Hollywood first, I think, for a movie.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. I think that we were scheduled for somewhere in the range of 25 to 26 shooting days, and we finished our pre-production, I believe, on like day 23. So it was a real scramble from a large group of people very committed to doing the very best that they can.
This scene here has the crony capitalists and the Washington bureaucrats, having a meeting, being concerned. There's Wesley Mouch, who's a antagonist throughout. The heroes have to run into all the time. But they're discussing Reardon, and it's. I mean, the metal is a fabulous metal. I mean, it's much lighter, many times stronger, cheaper, and so here the government and other competitors, capitalists here, are concerned about the effect that this miracle new invention is going to have to reestablish a crumbling society from an industrial point of view, and how they'll be able to control a lot of it.
Yeah, and then Brian, maybe you'll talk. There's Francisco. Maybe you can kind of talk about what trouble he's, creating and kind of his big role. We didn't really have a chance in the movie to flush that out, perhaps as much as we wanted to, but maybe you can give some insights.
The tough part about adapting is that some characters do fall by the wayside. The other character that sort of gets the short end is Eddie Willers in part one. But Francisco D'Aconia, I pronounced it right. He's pivotal in part one because he's part of the initial mystery. What they're discussing now is why basically is this guy throwing away $15 billion on a worthless thing? That's one of the mysteries that Dagny has to solve. And as this scene that comes up now, that we discover that people are starting to leave her. So this strike that people of the mind are having are taking a personal effect on what she's doing, which we'll see in a moment with Owen Kellogg. But what I really like about this scene is the dynamic between the two, because you see Dagny always at work. She's talking about she's not going to supply Mexico because Mexico isn't producing anything else why it isn't. And they have to keep that line alive. So because Mexico isn't producing, it's not important to her. And James's take on it that, you have to help people is really the spirit of practice socialism. You're starting to see the waves of that, and that he's a creature of public opinion. So in these opening scenes, you start to see that the mystery is building. And because it's part one, we're not able to answer all the questions. But I think as a standalone film, we get the idea of what's happening.
Hey, John, why don't you kind of share your insights? You were able to, obviously, before you acquired the rights, became very familiar with Ein and Atlas Shrugged, and maybe Brian brought up the concept of the strike, and maybe you can give some insights into the evolution of how the title Atlas Shrugged came about and those sorts of things.
Offer you a promotion. I wanted you to manage the Rio Norte line.
The working title of the book, Atlas Shrugged, again published 1957, but throughout most of the 9 or 10 years it took her, so from the late 40s, and I do have a copy of some of her work, her handwritten, her last speech she ever wrote, and that she used to speak at the Ford Hall Forum in Boston, and The Age of Mediocrity, I believe the name of the speech was. So I have that. In fact, I've copied my own writing for speeches or the context by skipping every other line, and so you have room to put inclusions in. And I just loved her thoughts and how she scratched out a phrase, a word, even an idea, and put something else in. And so the working title was The Strike, and she crossed that out and called it Atlas Shrugged. Her husband had given her that idea of all the weight that the producers, the creators, the entrepreneurs face each day. and how much weight can you bear? And for Atlas, it was the globe, but he's sweating and struggling and bleeding, and finally what the destroyer here in the film, they call him, the mystery of these, who's destroying the world by taking the greatest minds away. What's causing them to go? What's causing them to leave rather than continue the struggle? And the struggle is that you don't have to do that. You don't have to produce something, that you do for the love of it, and don't feel guilty for the rewards that you get. And I sometimes use the analogy of the golden goose, and it takes a lot to create wealth. People talk about making money, and that's a very American thing. You don't just create money. You don't make money. You have to use the mind. As only the only money you see is the money that's already been created. New money has to be created. And the entrepreneur, look at a fellow like Steve Jobs. I mean, he has moved the world. He's literally moved the world forward with his mind by creating the things he did. So we want people like him, up and down the chain, to stay incentivized, to feel part of a community, a society, but at the same time have a very important sense of their own life, that their own life and their achievements that they are blessed to and working hard to create are their own, and their own happiness is the most important thing. That's for every human being, not the government, not giving to others, but something where you purposefully, passionately believe in who you are and self-actualizing that result in as big and positive a way as you can and enjoying every piece of that. That does not mean you're not going to. Here's one fellow getting striking here, Richard Mack, the manufacturing CEO, and he got to where he was because he needed to create and put in the effort, and then he's free to be charitable, but force is a toxic ingredient that will disincentivize any creator. That's what's going on in the world here. Force, government force, is having people being manipulated to not be creative, but to work around what's necessary, regulations and one thing or another. Now, I'm talking about ethical people who are creative, smart, bright. They are motivated to their own happiness. I'm talking about people who are not crony, who are not fraudulent, people who are not not dishonest. So let's clear that up first. But then you get these wonderful creators, and they're all the abilities are up and down the line. I mean, the book is about the greatest minds in today's world, the Steve Jobs of our society. But I mean, it's the person that has one employee or no employee. He's creating money to sustain himself. He may have other employees to grow his business, and he's doing this. So why do we get these geese each day and take a piece of the golden egg, take the egg, have the government then distribute part of this golden egg, which was created by someone else, and without gratitude, go and distribute this egg to the moochers and the users and others, but take credit for the giving of the golden egg, and then the very people who created it are denigrated. That is the frustration of society today by the entrepreneurs and creators. It's the frustration of this movie, and it will be the frustration of tomorrow. And what we don't want to do is get these splendid people. I mean, Why do we, in an instant, say, "Oh my God, that guy can hit 350"? So 1 in 3 times he has a good base hit. Pay him $20 million a year. Or a guy fabulous. My God, the ticket prices are cheap at any price. He just gets those 3-pointers and he just lands them, and it's fabulous. Or what an actor, what an actress. Let's give a $40 million for a picture. But if a CEO gets a $30 million bonus, instinctively, our culture has created a sense that, oh, that guy is a bad guy. The money was gotten illicitly. It was dishonest. It could not have been that he earned it. It had to be that he's not worth the 100 or 1,000 times the pay of an ordinary worker. I mean, insane thinking. But this is what's going on. This is why this book was finally made. And I really thought that there was no explicit reason why Hollywood did not want to do it, or even implicitly. I thought maybe a little bit. Only in retrospect, when the en masse, like lemmings going over the side of a mountain, that the critics nailed this thing. They actually gave up the credentials of their profession. They actually gave up, the ethical, the honest reason of looking at a movie and saying, the movie was not good for the reasons that they espouse in their profession. The actors were not certified. The directors were not part of a guild. I mean, whatever the criteria, they en masse killed this movie, and it was simply for political reasons. So, we have here a movie that wasn't made, finally is getting made, showing what we should we should espouse as good, which are people who are free, independent, working together within a context of a society, but for themselves, because certainly self-denial is far, far worse than selflessness. And we've got this, this quote-unquote virtue that we've got to really take a second look at, the virtue of selflessness, where you are literally, that's the greater virtue than rational self-interest, is an issue. And it's why it's created, I think more recently, these Tea Party types who are just independent people, who are, I would define the Tea Party as, individuals outraged with society to the point where whatever they do, they're barbers, they own a laundromat, they work at a supermarket, they're all types. They've gotten up, and it's the simultaneous outrage of the individual. And this is where this is what this movie is now showing, and we'll go on from there.
And it's the interesting thing about the Reardon character, though, is that he personifies that his family, along with the government, is imposing this self-sacrificial code on them. That it's, you have to feel guilty about being rich and.
I have engines.
So, Brian, one of the things that I noticed, in reading the book was that, a lot of the words and terminology that was used by Ian back in the 1950s, were words that have kind of taken on, have different meanings, like producer and looter and those sorts of things. I think people would, be interested in kind of hear how you were and the decisions made in lifting certain passages sort of directly out of the book versus, taking cinematic liberties, of course, to contemporize, the dialogue and bring it up to, 2016.
Well, when you're adapting, first and foremost, this is not a period piece. Yes, it was written in 1957, but it takes place tomorrow. Its classification, Atlas Shrugged, is a science fiction novel. It's a warning. It's what if kind of science fiction. What Ayn Rand, to me, was trying to say was if watch these events, because if you allow these events to happen, this is what could happen to you. So yes, there are some terms like looters and moochers and things, and although we do use them once or twice, there's no time like in a novel to explain. Like for example, Dagny's nickname is Slug. We don't use that. He does call her Slug at one point, but we don't go into the detail, which is because a slug in railroad terms is what, a fiery, like a coal or something, you know, that fits her personality. So what I'm saying basically is that you can't. We didn't have time in the movie to explain certain terms, but I think through the characterizations and the actions of the characters, you understand when that word comes up. As far as dialogue, I mean, again, we had a very short time to write this, and John had a very good phrase that I always use. He goes, "When in doubt, what does it say in the book?" And so we tried to keep keeping the spirit of what's there. We use the words that were necessary to keep the spirit of what's happening.
And you'll see this conflict is always in play at each scene. Now here, Francisco was her first love, and he taught her so much about the sense of about love, about life, and they were very close. And then he slowly began to move toward one of the warriors of getting the people of the mine realizing that you don't have to continue punishing yourself. You don't have to continue to get beat up, and you can leave. And of course, she looks upon this. Dagny's not ready to leave, to strike. Again, the working title for 9 years. Well, she was holding on. You don't quit. You keep going. You keep going. And so finally, he's using Francisco, the muse, the beguiling way of acting like he's part of the society, part of the conventional wisdom and actions of the day. But she looks upon him as an evil person now because he's a playboy. He's given up working toward goals, and so that last scene there showed them at odds.
Right, and John, now we're heading into the anniversary scene, and I know you didn't impose a lot of things that you felt were personally important to you, but you did, when we set out to produce the film, say that you wanted to have a magnificent anniversary scene, and I think people would just get a kick out of kind of hearing this scene and kind of what you wanted it to look like and where we filmed it and those sorts of things.
Well, sometimes you get lucky and sometimes there's a poetic justice that just happens. And so this scene is at the Biltmore Hotel in L.A. It was where the first Academy Awards ceremonies had taken place. There's some shots down there in the lower level showing, Henry Fonda with all black hair, Cecil B. DeMille, and all the early pioneers and founders of Hollywood. And Harmon, what was it about this room? The Gold Room?
Yeah, it was the Gold Room, and she had a nexus to Cecil DeMille, and it just one of the things that we got very fortunate is right here in Los Angeles where we filmed most of the movie. I mean, we literally were able to use locations without having to do too much set dressing, and this is just sort of opulent type room that Lillian.
She looks very beautiful there, doesn't she? Right. I always thought that scene was cross. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
No. So it's just and it exemplified, and I think it was one of those things where you have choices to make in the course of production where you want to spend your money, and we put a lot of resources into this scene, and I think not only did it turn out well from an entertaining, but the cinematography that was done by Ross and the long shots and those type of things really sort of exemplify just how great a crew we ended up putting together. I think this was filmed on July 3rd. People have been working very, very hard, on the verge of taking a day off, and yet I think it comes across so natural and beautiful. It's one of the things that I really think we did well.
Yeah, I like the fact that we did use the Biltmore. Some of the other scenes, the Fine Arts Building in L.A. had some great location for some of the shots there. City Hall, the Union Station. Interestingly, the Taggart corporate tagline is "From Ocean to Ocean," and we've got shot there at the Union Station where we did a few scenes as the Taggart Continental headquarters for West Coast. So it's the ocean to ocean, New York to L.A. I mean, there was just some fine things that, a lot of struggles, but we got lucky on a bunch of things. You mentioned earlier about Grant Bowler, our James, our Henry Reardon. We literally, the movie was resting, the shooting schedule, on him catching a plane in Australia and coming in. We literally picked him up at the JFK, brought him in, threw some makeup on his face, and he got into this scene.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. I mean, Francisco, played by Jesus Garcia. I mean, yeah, this is a guy who, once he had been cast in the movie, was very fascinated about it, read the book, really embraced the character. Our Ellis Wyatt Graham Beckel, another person inspired by the book, really went out of his way. I mean, one of the things that we were forced to do, since we didn't have the support of a studio when we distributed the picture, was really rely on community level, grassroots type marketing. And guys like Jesu and Graham and Matthew Morrison, who played James Taggart, really went out of their way to go out and support the film. And we're very inspired and influenced by the book and being a part of the legacy of the making of Atlas Shrugged.
And here now we're going to see Francisco come up and talk to Reardon, and he's sort of feeling him out. Why are you supporting all these people around you? Why are you feeling guilty and having to, not self-actualize a life you want, but why are you having these people, really taking part of your own soul, and says, you need to figure out why you are so unhappy. And of course, Reardon says, who the hell are you? What's this all about? And so Francisco's working him. This is the guy he wants to. This is a great, prize that he can get to go on strike. So that's the interplay here. By the way, with the essential message that the entrepreneur, the rational minds go on strike because of their being denigrated and not appreciated, and they finally, too much weight and they go on strike. One of the close, I guess, I wouldn't even say second, I say probably a partner of that, a whole thought of what this movie is about, is Ayn Rand always said that opposing groups with the same principle can survive. Okay, a husband and wife saying, "Well, what do you want to do? You want to go to a movie tonight, or should we go to dinner?" And they'll argue. No, let's not. We went to a movie last week. Well, I don't want to go to a movie again. I mean, they may disagree. They may oppose each other on what to do, but they both want to be happy. The idea is we have a successful night, and this is a very simple, rudimentary example. But they're going to be happy. I mean, they both want happiness for the evening. But Ayn Rand, or Canada and the U.S. negotiating about, a border dispute. I mean, both are free societies. There's an honest disagreement. They may need to go to international court and figure it out because maybe there's some minerals on one side of the boundary, other, but they're not going to go to war over it. But what she said is two opposing groups with opposing principles cannot negotiate, cannot compromise. The principles are opposed. So if one side wants the other side dead, how the hell are you going to compromise? Well, if you take my arm, then will we have peace? And then the rest of my body is mine? I mean, this really reflects a lot of the international politics going on today, why there are some countries we simply cannot negotiate with. We cannot compromise someone that does not want your way of life to survive. They don't want you to survive. They want to survive. So it's either, they win or you win. They lose or you lose. And I think what's happening in America today, and this partly reflects it, this 2016 scene here, is that we're wondering why. People, voters are wondering, why can't they get along, Congress? Why don't they compromise? Why don't they see each other's point of view? You give a little, I'll give a little. But the principles are opposed. One is government is part of the sinew and fabric of your life. Without government, you cannot have a happy citizenry. The other side says, are you kidding me? Government is supposed to keep me safe. A military, police, courtrooms, that's it. No Department of Education, no FDA, no Department of this or that, no regulations, no Dodd-Frank bill, none of that stuff. Keep me safe and let me be free. And if I have a restaurant and I serve crappy food, I'll go out of business. You don't have to have a restaurant law or anything like that. I mean, so I think that's where the citizenry is now and why each election becomes so important, because we are so fundamentally opposed that the people that represent us.
Hey, John, let me just interject. We just saw the rail construction scene. I just wanted to point out a little bit about that because, we involved in the film was a guy named Mike Marvin, who we had sent out to try to figure out a way to open that film up.
Second unit director.
Yeah, their second unit. And I just got to, a lot of people have kind of commented on the production values, and credit has to go out to Mike and his whole crew, who I think went out on the road for about 3 weeks, staying in flea bag hotels and doing the best they can to try to find these exterior locations, these second unit shots to open the pictures up. And literally they were able to find a group that was repairing and replacing the railroad ties. And we were able to get that. And it looks like it was staged just for us. And so I just wanted to point
again,
that
lucky,
out.
Harmon. Yeah, we got lucky again on that one. And we see more of what you're pointing out here, more of the openness. Fleshing out the movie an awful lot. And this, Mike did a nice job with his 2 weeks of shooting day to day, all out there in Colorado.
Right. I mean, and Brian, you may comment. I mean, this is getting to a very important part of the movie. And you may want to just sort of let the audience sort of know what's going on in these particular scenes here.
We can't afford to allow the expansion.
Well, right now we just start to see. I want to go back a little bit to when Dagny and Lillian Reardon exchanged jewelry. I had a great opportunity to see the movie 7 times in different theaters when it was during its theatrical release. And I got people would ask questions, but one of the questions that everyone kept asking was why did they do that? And I think the great thing about the book that was came onto the screen here was that people were able to think. They wondered. We didn't have to tell them. We allowed them to think. And to me, the exchange of the bracelet was basically it was a reminder for Dagny of man's mind to create. She cherished that because that was made. That was something to do that. But that's a good question that everyone had a different answer to. But right now, as you see, it's the government right now. The equalization of opportunity bill is set into motion. The creativeness of Dagny Reardon against the destructive, decisions of the government is turning more socialist, is squeezing more, and clearly we're not living in a free society anymore in this world. And so you're going to start to see that as they get closer to their goal, which is the opening of the John Galt line, the more the government is getting afraid and is starting to squeeze and starting to and trying to keep more
right
control.
Here they're trying to buy. The government wants to buy Reardon Metal, and Reardon is refusing. And he said to the government fellow there, he asked him, well, why don't you sell it to me? And he says, because it's mine. Do you get that point? Do you get that understanding? It's mine. And so that's a key piece here. And by the way, for some reason, Ayn Rand gets the reputation unfairly, ridiculously so, of being a right winger. That she is, that Tea Party and conservative, and that's it. But the fact is, she had both feet in both sides of it. I mean, she was a person who. She was. For the right side of the ledger, I guess politically, she was pro abortion, which they didn't like. They're pro-life on the right side. She was would not be in favor of any drug policy. Of course, the right wing would. The left wing says no drug policy. She was for a strong defense, and I think maybe the right would like that more so than the left. The free markets, the right clearly loves, and I mean the left wing is more suspect of free markets, unbridled capitalism, and would be more fearful and would want more of a government side. So she was for free speech, these obscenity laws in Congress. She had testified, and she was for no sorts of hold on free speech. So she was clearly a very social liberal in other areas, and I think and yet the right wing loves her so much, even though she was an atheist. The right wing really likes her because she loved free markets and the individualism was sacred. So
well, I think it comes down to that she wrote a story for everyone.
Everyone.
This is a story of humanity. This is the story. No one likes to get their pocket picked. Nobody likes to have to give away something they earned and they worked for. And I think everyone can relate to that at some time. And I think the people who have seen the movie already, and hopefully you've seen it before listening to this commentary, you get at the end that you have a right to your own life. That's the message of the film. Everybody
It's
has
a movie
that right.
for everyone. It's a great love story here with Dagny and the men in her life and her life. But I really would hate, as the years go on, that the right wing thinks this is their baby, or the left wing thinks this is the perfect thing to hate, or vice versa. As it evolves and matures, and maybe it reverses, and the left starts to say, "Wow, takes on," and the right. It's a movie for everyone.
It's
about
a warning.
It's about individualism, principles to have a rational and happy life, and those things that get in the way.
Yeah, just I want to point out just on the scene here with Naveed Negahban. He was another one of the actors that really stepped out, helped us promote the film. Actually, made appearances at the theaters in character, which I think really, one of the things that was. Really fortuitous for us was the response that we got from people who went to the theaters and saw the movie. I mean, they applauded, they talked afterwards. They used it really as an opportunity to share, ideas with like-minded people. We're very fortunate. Neil Barry is another one of the actors that really stepped out on a regular basis, as Graham, who's on screen now, also made appearances at theaters to interact with the audience. I mean, one of the things that we wanted to do was, make this a film that people who had been inspired and influenced by the book could embrace, be a part of. One of the things that we did as part of the marketing is allow people to send in videos. I Am John Galt, which I believe are also included on this DVD, a compilation of all those things. It was very important to John and me that we allow people who had read the book and been inspired by its message to participate as much as they could in celebrating the production of this movie.
Now, I'm going to point something out to everyone here watching this DVD, that I'm going to show you a flaw, a mistake that happened. And if you had the time and do it all over again, this is Reardon visiting Dagny and Alice Wyatt visiting Dagny on the site of this bridge and getting the track done. And probably I'd have had jeans and some running shoes on her, and kind of a flannel shirt or sweatshirt or something or other. Have her in really working clothes, working there. So I never thought I'd say this. So to you, viewer, you have a special, unique, once-in-a-lifetime admission of an era. Now, right there is Reardon Steel. Here we have now the track about to be completed and the run of the John Galt line about to unfold here. This is a magnificent scene, and Ilya did a great job with the music on all fronts here.
Yeah, why don't you, John, kind of let people, that was sort of item number two, was that you thought was going to be very important for the movie, was the music itself and sort of the grandeur, and maybe you can sort of take people through the process that we went through in coming up with the
Well,
score.
I wanted the ending of this movie to reflect, and great ideas often are borrowed. There's they become greater ideas using the minds of others, and they grow in each other. But from the beginning, I wanted a Gone with the Wind kind of an ending, this epic, end this sense, and we'll see that ending as we move ahead. But I wanted that some of the movement and actions of the character of Dagny Taggart will reflect that. You'll see that magnificence of that ending and Going to the Wind with Atlanta and flames and her being just totally devastated, and yet she has this huge resolve to move on. But I also wanted to have a sense that the music was so gigantic. And in fact, one of the things I'm hoping that you'll do when the end of this DVD comes up, I hope that you don't just run to go to the bathroom or get some more popcorn for the next movie you're going to see. I hope that you'll just be that the music and how we ended it is just keeps you in your seat. You're just cemented to it.
Or better yet, go online and buy the CD of the soundtrack, because the music is beautiful.
You sound like a greedy capitalist.
No, but
there,
I listen to it when I'm writing, and it's just the way Elia was able to capture an Americana tone.
Yes.
Buried within almost traditional, the action and the melodrama, but he was able to capture again the spirit of these businessmen who are heroes, which you rarely see. Usually, the businessman is the villain. In this story, that they're the hero.
But I was petrified, frightened throughout the entire thing that even with a successful movie, without the music, without it coming up, we would only have achieved a part of our goal. And so our composer really came up with fabulous music to. Like when you all saw Titanic in the movie theaters, you sat and watched the rest of the credits. You were just glued to your seat.
This scene is another great example of the effort made by John Mott, our production designer. It opened with the toy train, which was, I thought a nice touch. And again, if you look around, all of the various little elements and pieces that he put into the office. You see the bust of Nate Taggart in the background. You see the custom Taggart map. All of these things. I mean, you wouldn't generally. I mean, this is a film that people would generally consider a quote low budget film for Hollywood standards, but when you see the effort that Ross and Paul and Mike and John and Jennifer and all these people who are critical members of our production team put into it, it doesn't look low budget at all. And one of the things people have really complimented John and me about is just how rich the production values are. And really credit needs to go to those people who worked with very little resources but really delivered a lot of beauty and magnificence and richness that you're seeing on the screen right now.
Yeah, I second the motion on that, Harmon.
This is, Brian, maybe you can, again, I keep pointing out these Francisco and Dagny Taggart scenes, but
I think we all had a crush on Francisco. But in this scene, he has he's very tormented because he can't tell him. And see, one of the parts about having to adapt a book to a movie is the things you leave out. And we were unable to do these fantastic flashbacks when they were children and they were watching a railroad when they were kids, talking about their future, and to really get that sense of their relationship. So the good thing about a movie is that you're able to show something that maybe took 20 pages in a book to tell you. And I think the actors in that scene did such an extraordinary job to show that pain and that separation and her determination. And this little montage that you're seeing right now is that she's not giving up. She loves that railroad. She is not giving it up. And I think one of the saddest parts of the book is that Dagny and Francisco didn't hook up, you know, because that was really the soul of the book to me, was their relationship.
I mean, you know, this is one of the things, that again we did in trying to create awareness for the film. A lot of radio and television, and you know, one of the things that really emerged from all this is just what an incredible role model Ein created in Dagny Taggart. I mean, you know, we've just seen throughout this entire movie someone obviously, you know, very attractive, but tenacious, incredibly hardworking, dedicated, not to be denied. And she's a woman, and you have to remember the book was written way back in the 50s. It's 2016. Women probably still experience a lot of the things that Dagny's experiencing right now in this movie, even though, you know, as it's set in 2016. And she just comes across as just a phenomenal role model. So, you know, regardless of whether or not you embrace the philosophy of the book or anything else, Dagny in and of herself, just, you know, somebody that you know, should inspire, you know, women and others to aspire to become.
Where did you find this?
Remember that motor company I was telling you about in Wisconsin? I did a little
This is
digging
the
around.
second mystery of the book, and of the movie, I should say, is the story of the 20th Century Motor Company, which we'll see later. But at this point, again, in adapting the book, it was important to bring that storyline up in the movie than it is in the book. So I know a lot of people had commented, you know, well, why are they talking about looking at pictures? And that's just for clarity and for the film's sake that we did that.
What is it?
The legislature just passed the Equalization of Opportunity bill.
So quickly,
Well,
how
there
is
we
that
go.
even possible?
I don't know. You know what this means? Nobody can own more than one company.
We'll find a way to fix this.
So now Reardon is restricted to owning just one company, which will be Reardon Steel, Reardon Metal. And he has to sell his ore company and coal company and manufacturing and all of that. And again, just senseless things that governments do around the world and have done it for centuries. And this movie is trying to say enough, stop. And will it happen? Maybe. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and I think there's also some, you know, this goes back to just how relevant the book and movie is to what's going on now. You know, in the earlier scene when he was approached by the government and trying to get them at that point to sell them the metal, I mean, they talked about a physical danger or a social danger. Either way, they're going after him. And even in you know, our lifetimes, I mean, we've seen, you know, the government view you know, various large corporations as presenting a social danger and forcing them to sell off various pieces or open up parts of their technology so that others could have access to them. And it really does go against kind of the spirit of capitalism and innovation that I think is trying to be espoused.
Now, we've had something on the books for a long time now. It's the antitrust. And again, Ayn Rand used to get frustrated that people don't think. And we have on the books today a law called it's essentially an antitrust. It means there's 5 competitors, and then maybe through competition in the marketplace, there's 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. But not by edict, not by government help, but because their products are desired, people want to buy them, there's a marketplace for them, and if they can sustain being one company, and rather than 10 or 20, naturally through market forces, great. But for government to say there should be competition, put an antitrust in, all of that, those are the things that tear a society apart, that does not make it as strong as it can. So an antitrust entity, a bill, whatever, a law is totally senseless to a society where capitalism is the moral objective of the society.
Right. Here's another scene again going to the relevance to what we're experiencing today, where Dagny's dealing with a private union, and yet in the midst of the theatrical release of the film in April of 2011, states are going through issues dealing with public unions, and it's just fascinating how Ein sort of foresaw the future and then empowered this woman really to stand up, which some of the governors in some of these states that are experiencing some tough economic decisions are also having to stand up to the unions too.
There's a scene after this that we weren't able to put into the movie that was one of those really hard cuts. Right after this, the next day, the guy's telling him that none of my men are going to work on your line, and she's basically saying, at least give them the choice. And in the book, she opens the door the next day, and there's a legion of men waiting to work. And that, to me, is one of those heart parts of the book that, unfortunately, we weren't able to make to the movie.
Yeah, that's one of several that we wanted to have in there.
That was that would have been a good scene.
Where the union men are cheering the fact that she allowed them to have the opportunity to get on this train.
So, John, as we get into this scene, two really important things we should point out. Obviously, people would be able to appreciate Elia's music, but also Stargate, was another critical decision that we made, and maybe you can kind of share the experience we had with
yeah, well,
the
we
boys
had,
there.
and this is part of being able to think and use your own mind and make mistakes and get successes and all of that. And in visual effects here, we had several appointments, as you should, interviewing whether it's actors or, guild members for one thing or another, in this case, visual effects. And we met Sam Nicholson, the head of Stargate visual effects, and I mean, that was it. I mean, we had the one move. I canceled the other 3 appointments and hired Sam and his team, and they did a fabulous job with this John Galt scene. That train looks like you can just pay your fare and walk right on.
Yeah, now, and also, people should notice Elia now has moved the music into horns and brass, sort of representative of the Reardon metal aspect that we're experiencing on the screen. And this is just did a fabulous job creating a theme that I think exemplifies the accomplishment that these two people are experiencing, and through a lot of perseverance and hard work, and obviously appreciating the beauty and rewards that are going to flow from that accomplishment.
And the theme behind this scene too is that it's beautiful and they triumph. Obviously you've seen the movie, hopefully, so you know that they do triumph at the end. But really, in the end, what is it? The unions win, but Dagny, doesn't get rewarded. She's penalized, and that's kind of the dark side of all of this. Is that she and Reardon went through all of this. And the only ones that got anything out of this was the unions at the end. She's penalized.
So all these scenes were shot in Colorado, which is where the actual story takes place. And our craft team of interns doing a lot of research found for us this beautiful gorge. It's the Royal Gorge. That is not a CGI shot there. I mean, the bridge is. And the visual effects there were overseen by Mark Spatney and the team at Stargate. We also want to point out that the interior scenes were shot at about 5 a.m. after a full day's work, just trying to squeeze everything in, working. This was an independent film, and these actors, having already worked 10 hours, still really are delivering for us on all cylinders, and really, comes through, I think, in their performances.
Well, great scene, great moment there. The triumph of the John Galt line, going over the new Reardon Metal Bridge, and they'll be moving into Wyatt Junction. And Ellis Wyatt is the last, one of the very last large oil producers in Colorado here, and announces a celebration dinner that they're about to go to, And then we see the evolving of the Reardon-Dagny relationship, and a couple of pissed off government guys here.
From the State Science Institute. 300 miles in less than 90 minutes.
Was there ever any doubt?
No, and because there was no doubt, I prepared a magnificent meal for the two of you. Did you see?
And here's the government, ever vigilant. They'll find a way to tear the producers and entrepreneurs down. So they're already conniving fresh after the victory to do just that.
Right, and also, that we were very fortunate to get some very kind of familiar character actors. Here's John Polito, Michael Lerner.
I think they account for about 150 movies, the two of them, just right there, Harmon.
No, and it was great. This was John's first movie as a producer, mine also. Brian has substantially more credits than that for screenwriting. And these people trusted us, and they came on board, I think, in large part because they wanted to be a part of the legacy. Had been, inspired by the book, but also just the opportunity to, be involved in an independent film that they had some faith and belief in. This is the last day, by the way. Just after, once this scene wrapped up, that was
That's right.
the end of production.
Wasn't it a reshoot, though? Didn't you have to reshoot this scene? Wasn't there something wrong with the film?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, one of the things that, in making certain production decisions, John said, he wanted to go with the best technology. So this film was shot on the Red camera, which was is the latest technology that existed at the time for digital photography. We had great experience with it, except for one corrupted hard drive.
I think only one in every 3 or 4 movies are made with red cameras, so it's still a highly regarded technology.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it happens, but it's just I remember this was the one scene that had to be reshot.
Well, I can see that the market is opened in Hong Kong. I have some phone calls to make. You have been charming company, but I must excuse myself. There are several guest rooms upstairs. Help yourself.
Thank you for everything.
Again, when you talk about the locations, this was just another bit of good fortune that we experienced finding this mansion, out in the Santa Clarita Valley, really where there was nothing else around. I think it was built by the same company that developed a lot of the homes in that area. It's just an incredible mansion, and very lucky that we were able to get in it. And again, it just adds to the richness and production values. Ellis Wyatt, very successful Renaissance man, so it's totally in line with his character and his stature as presented in the book.
Yeah, this is an Ellis Wyatt home.
Yeah.
It really is.
Now, on this scene, in the novel, following their night of lovemaking, one of the things that people bring up to me when we have personal appearances is, why didn't we have the scene where Reardon, is having mixed feelings about what he did with Dagny the night before? And again, I have to bring it to cinematic reasons, is because at this point in the story, to just stop the movie and have this explanation would have slowed it down. And that's the reason why a good book to movie adaptation, the role of that movie is to get people to read the source material. I want you to go back and read the book, and be able to delve deeper into it. I'll tell you one story real quick. I was doing a personal appearance before the movie was released, and I said one of the things I'd hoped is on April 16th, when the movie is out, that I go on a bus and I see someone reading Atlas Shrugged. And on Facebook, a kid sent me a picture of the gifts that he got for his birthday. And after seeing Atlas Shrugged, he got the book for his birthday. And so I thought, well, you know what? I accomplished what we wanted.
Yeah, just some other people to sort of recognize. Bruce Gillis was our line producer, and just again another guy tirelessly working so that all of these elements would be available for us to be able to shoot these scenes in a very limited amount of time with a very limited, amount of resources, and should definitely take and get credit for a lot of the beauty that you're seeing here on the screen.
My name is familiar to you.
These are Mike Marvin shots you're seeing here.
You get a chance to hear the theme, John Galt theme, with all this. Good transition to the next day.
Where's Wyatt?
Morning.
Now they're having a conversation at breakfast, and they're wondering, where did our host go? Where did Alice Wyatt go?
I didn't want to wait.
Right, and I guess, Brian, in the book, this comes very, very late in the book, and it seemed like it is very truncated, but, maybe you can give some insight into just kind of how important it is for, the underlying story here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that came down. I mean, one person that hasn't been given kudos yet, it was our editor, Cheryl, who did a fantastic job bringing it all together. Editors, by my experience, have always been the magicians of all films to bring the story together. And one of the things, after the success of the train, and now we're going after the mystery, the motor that could change the world, the big mystery, which is the 20th Century Motor Company. And to me, as a writer, and having had read the book, the heart of the story to me, the basis was what happened at the 20th Century Motor Corporation.
What is it with people today?
And the birth of the phrase "Who is John Galt?" I don't want to ruin anything, for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, but it's another reason to pick up the book is to find out what happened.
And here they're going through the 20th century plant, a very successful motor plant at one point. And when the father died, the children took over, and they began to equalize pay, and those of ability or those that did not have ability or effort were treated similarly, each according to his need, and each according to their ability, and that collapsing of the wage scale and other things that you don't do to keep a thriving enterprise going. It imploded and it went bankrupt. And that experience has happened here in this scene. It's happened in our country and other countries for centuries. It's going to happen probably in the future, on and on and on, and hopefully a lot less so. But if the ideas of this novel and this book get out, well, this scene of aging, decrepit, closed plants, whether it's steel plants in Pittsburgh or other places we've had, there's no reasons for plants to atrophy and wither and die when people who run them are allowed to freely use their minds to generate and create wealth and energy and markets for people to buy things who want to pay money to buy them. And that's capitalism in a nutshell. And now they're going through the motor. Obviously, a very important person worked here. They got into this small ante-room and discovered this motor, this sort of thing here. And I often wonder, with gasoline at $4 a gallon, I often wonder if somebody created a motor like that, electrostatic, and the de facto essential price of gasoline went from $4 a gallon to 4 cents a gallon, but the guy that made that motor and created that energy for cars to run on became a trillionaire, not a measly billionaire or centibillionaire, but a trillionaire. What would society do? Would they call him a baron? Would they call him a looter? Would they say he is what do they call those guys in the last century? The business types. Tycoons, yeah, some kind of some negativity, or will they applaud and praise this guy who thankfully is a trillionaire, but it's giving me 4 cents a gallon gasoline? These are simple but essential questions for everyone seeing this movie to think about.
He's in Washington now.
Now they're on the hunt to try to find the inventor of this motor.
Well, my goal is social progress, universal prosperity. Welfare of the nation is my primary consideration, to which I wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice anyone's profit.
So, one of the things that we scrambled for were locations, and a lot of stuff was actually shot on the USC campus. This is one of the things that we shot in their library.
Yep.
Also, when the train left Cheyenne, that whole train location was also shot there at USC, and with the use of green screen and putting it in the television monitors. The post-production team headed up by John Orland did just a fabulous job melding it in and making people believe we were in a different location.
He quit the day after we introduced the plan. You'll find him in Brandon, Wyoming.
My husband died 5 years ago, Miss Taggart.
Did he ever mention a motor he created?
It was his young assistant.
Another decision that was made was in the novel, Dagny basically does this detective work on her own because Reardon goes back to his mills because now Reardon Metal is a success. Everybody wants it, but we felt that so that the audience got more of their relationship and more of their the love that's respect that's growing between them, that we would keep them together just a little longer.
I gotta get back to my mills.
Now?
I have a business to run.
We can't quit now, Hank. You're so close. Imagine what will happen if we find the inventor of that motor and get it up and running.
Okay, give me a few days.
Here's a guy with a private jet to move around. One of those jet owners.
Hank, I'm back. Just want to see how you're doing.
I'm great, Hank. I'm heading up to Axton's Diner now. There's Eddie on the other line. I'll call you back. Hey, Eddie, what's up?
The Union of Locomotive Engineers is demanding that all trains on the John Galt line be reduced from 100 to 60 miles an hour. And if we don't comply, as of right now, Wyoming, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah are not allowing any trains into Colorado.
This is madness.
That's not all, Dagny. Orem Boyle is campaigning for a bill that would limit the production of Reardon Metal. Is that my sister on the phone?
Talk to her. Where the hell are you? Do you have any idea what's happening here?
Jim, this is your battle. I fought mine. They're your friends. You stop them.
Yeah, there's this urge for some people to want to control other people. There's even a saying that, some folks would rather be, a king in hell than just have a part of heaven.
He worked with a man named
John Mott was our prop master, and people probably noticed on there on the cigarette, the dollar sign. I mean, again, those are one of the discussions that we had over there on Rhodes Avenue was, is there going to be a cigarette shop, and or do we replace it with a coffee shop? Are people there buying magazines? Obviously, the dollar sign on the cigarette has a lot of symbolism and importance in the book. But
in the book, yeah, it does in the book, and I think we made the right decision, Harmon, in minimalizing here. And it's 2010. This thing was shot. Cigarettes were just out. I mean, to such a point, and I think we kept the symbolism in with the sign of the dollar on the cigarette. But I think, smoking in the 1940s and 50s when this book was being made, she visited the cigarette shop owner and all of that. So, you do adapt, you do change with the times on certain items that are not fundamental.
Plus, it also foreshadows what happens in part 2 when Dagny is reunited with Owen Kellogg, and he offers her a cigarette, and they have the gold conversation about I won't give you this, but I'll sell you the cigarette. So again, we're doing a trilogy. We're doing 3 movies, so there has to be things. So at one point, we hope that you all watch all 3 movies at once, together, and you'll see how little threads weave through each movie, and that was one of them that will be paid off in part 2.
So I
I think it's a good thing, yes.
And it's fair to
As Wesley Mouch's growing power within the government.
Penalizing another state, you're helping another state.
It's more of like a Robin Hood of taking from the rich and feeding the poor.
I mean, rich people are getting richer. Poor people are getting poorer.
It's me.
This is
I heard about
United
what Orrin
States
Boyle
of
is up to.
America.
Call me.
Breaking news out of Wyatt Junction, Colorado. A major fire has erupted at the Wyatt oil fields. Reports are coming.
So, Brian, maybe you can go through some of the time lapse that needed to occur between, the successful run and now the fire.
Fire crews have been brought in from as far away as Denver County to help battle the blaze.
What we just saw, her journey to find the motor, I mean, it was unfortunately, because we wanted to reach a certain time, running time for the film, it was truncated as far as the storyline. It was really a mystery to find Hugh Axton.
Thank you. As the new coordinator.
I'm not sure that there's much, I know that I don't know if on the Blu-ray or the DVD there's going to be the deleted scenes. I know, like, for example, the Ivy Starnes scene was a little longer.
Now here we're getting near the end of the movie. The pace is definitely picking up, and there has been some discussion as to the to that pace. I think it was quick. I think it was good. I think if we had to do over again, we might have added a little bit here and there. But I think this pace was necessary to catch up to the key moment of what Ellis Wyatt does and the reality of where society is going. So right now, there's the rationalization, there's the justification for the economic bill, the equalization of opportunity. We're not trying to equalize. Now, that equalization of opportunity obviously is not an equalization where we all start at the finish, at the starting line together. Now, where you end up is based on your ability, how hard you work, all of that. But where equalization of opportunity is really equalizing the end result, and that is toxic and forceful into a society, and that's what we're seeing here. So she's was just at this house. They were traveling, trying to find the motor. Then all of a sudden she's back, and she sees this fire. Her mind is just riddled. Where is Ellis? Where is he? What's happened? We were just here. It was a happy party. The John Galt line. We completed its run. We had an upturn. Society was going to right itself, and now she's in the house. There's smoke. There's no Ellis Wyatt. I mean, she is one of the few people holding on, not quitting. Let's go. We can get it done. The hell with the government. The hell with any negative thing that happens. We as entrepreneurs, we must continue. We cannot strike. We cannot quit. We need to move on.
Heroes live. The government we have there respects each of us as individuals and as producers. Actually, we own a few courthouses.
And that's John Galt speaking.
Right. And again, Stargate, a lot of credit, a lot of hard work went into bringing to life an oil field on fire that did not exist.
And this is the moment here of that Gone with the Wind moment where she's shattered, and she's going to continue the fight, but at this moment, what seemed to be going so well, now the one more great mind has left, has quit, and she's devastated at this moment. And he says that sign, I left it as I found it. Take over. It's yours. The music's so important here, and you'll hear right now what we try to do with it.
Don't try to find me. You won't. I am on strike.
Right now.
So, John, maybe a little discussion about part 2?
Well, our aspiration is There's our director of photography, Ross Berryman. John Mott, my goodness, what a production designer, and on and on. I mean, I'm not going to comment on every one, but those credits are well deserved for those people that got this done. You know, look, folks, the aspiration is the autumn, October, roughly, of 2012, to have this Part 2 out. I'd say that Part 2 is the most difficult part of 3. This Part 1 just had just a self-contained beginning and end. Really, from a point, something not to worry about for us was, if you followed the book and you followed the good, 1.5, 2 hour movie, it will have worked and did, beginning, ending. 3 is a cake walk. It's just flows perfectly to its proper conclusion. 2 is we're going to need some great acting. It's not as visual, Part 2, as Part 3 and Part 1 is. You know, there will be this big scene, and some of you that know the book, you'll see the Francisco money speech where he says money is not the root of all evil, money is the root of all good, and gives that speech. There's the Reardon in the courthouse. That's a big scene, visual. Then the explosion, which probably will be in Part 2.
It will.
It has to be, I
It
know.
will.
and that's a big visual scene, visual effects, of course, and so forth. The rest of it is acting. It's situational. It's in offices. It's
Right.
It's not as the second unit director is not going to have as much to do in Part 2 as he did in Part 1 or will in Part 3.
Well,
so Part 2 will have its own challenges.
And it's like you said, it's a darker movie. Whereas in Part 1 was, the underdog story. This will be the Empire Strikes Back of our trilogy, where, we see more of the decay of civilization, the more of the warning that Ayn Rand was trying to say in her pages. The darkness, and then the third one is more of the deliverance and the light. But I'm very much looking forward to 2. I think we're having fun writing it right now.
Yeah. Again, it will be a more cerebral movie, but if people that saw 1 will like Part 2, and again, is that a different nuance in each one. I'm hoping pre-production starts. Right now, we're in August of 2011, and we hope by the end of the year to start pre-production and then get right into the shoot.
But we'd like to thank all the fans and everyone that came out to the theaters. I personally met a lot of very great people and very gracious people who understood what we were trying to do, and hopefully we
Now we will be depending on online technologies a lot, but the budget will have a significant amount for the traditional P&A or marketing, putting advertising dollars that are necessary. So I would say that box office would have been much better on 1, double, triple, quadruple, if we had probably done the platforming or the coming out of the movie on fewer screens, build it from there. So we'll do that. That's something that I'm really looking forward to doing, is doing a more traditional Hollywood marketing, and of course using the huge number of online fans. So using a two-edged sword to get a really successful movie production for Atlas Shrugged Part 2 in the autumn of 2012.
Yeah, I wanted to say, especially to Brian, a lot of pressure, a lot of hard work. John and I, forever grateful for the effort that you put into doing it. John, obviously, I described to people you sort of fell out of the sky into my lap in April of 2010. To include me with you on, the legacy of Ayn Rand, being a part of Atlas Shrugged, for you taking the courage to use your own resources, to have a team of people that you weren't familiar with and entrust them with something that you had put a lot of your own money in, certainly a lot of your heart and soul over 18 years. what a fabulous opportunity. I mean, literally changed, our lives for the better.
Absolutely.
And, Brian and I really speak on behalf of everybody, and people will see at the end credits. There are a lot of people that we're very grateful for, but John, you really are now, sort of the leader and have the responsibility for making this message cinematically for people that will last hopefully as long as the book and have the same impact. So,
well,
really a pleasure.
My thanks to you, to Howard Baldwin for the introduction to you, Harmon, because without Harmon Kaslow, there would have been no Atlas Shrugged Part 1. And without Brian and just been so fortunate to be so collaborative with the primary goals here, it would have been a far different movie. So thanks also to you, Brian.
Thank you both.
And I thankfully to myself, most of all, for making sure that in the special quotes credit, I included my wife, Joan Carter.
Smart move.
Smart.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joan.